Hello, family. I want to thank you all for coming back to participate in day 3 of the Purpose Challenge. Again, thank you for all of the encouragement and support through your comments and your messages. I also want to thank all of you who have already signed up to join the My Soul Purpose community. I've added the link on this posting. The community will officially open for new members on Friday, so please be on the lookout for the email with your membership approval and the login information. So, yesterday we talked about how fear can hold us in bondage and keep us from discovering and walking in our purpose. Today, we're going to challenge ourselves to throw away all of our excuses, because today our topic is simply use what you have. So, if you're taking the time to watch me right now, it means that you have something burning in your belly or the realization that something is missing. You have big dreams and goals that you want to accomplish, but too often we find ourselves stuck in a rut. And in our community, we call it stuck like Chuck. Unfortunately, we then start looking for excuses for why we can't take action. And it's these excuses that keep us from walking in our calling and our purpose. One of the biggest excuses that we use is not having what we need. Whether it's money, resources, knowledge, or time, we use these things as a way to avoid taking action. We tell ourselves that we can't do something because we don't have the right resources. And I call this the old when I, then I game. When I get some money, then I will start the business. When I get more time, then I will go back to school. When I lose 20 pounds, then I will have the confidence to meet someone new. When I get me a man or a woman, then I will be happy. When I get the 25th confirmation sign from God, then I will make a move. And so you may be sitting there thinking, well, it's easy for you to talk about using what you've got. You have a doctorate degree. And indeed I do. I have had a doctorate degree for approximately 32 weeks of my 53 years. The moves I've had to make, the risks that I've had to take, all happened long before I was blessed to finish that doctorate degree. And I will say, unless the call on your life or the thing that you are dreaming to do requires an advanced degree, not having an education is not a good excuse. But if what you're called to do does in fact require more education or skills or resources or support, then by all means, go get it. But the truth is, we often have enough to get started, right where we are. We may not have everything we need, but we have enough to take the first steps toward our goals. We may not have all of the knowledge or more degrees than a thermometer, but we can learn as we go along. The excuse for not having what we need is most often just a fear of failure. It's a fear of stepping outside of your comfort zone. It becomes a convenient scapegoat that allows us to avoid taking risks and then making excuses for our lack of progress. The reality is, there are many, many successful people throughout history that have achieved great things with limited resources. They didn't let the absence of certain tools or resources hold them back from pursuing their purpose. They didn't let poverty, neglect, or abuse hold them back from pursuing their purpose. Instead, they focused on what they did have, and they used it to their advantage. Let's take, for example, Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. And let all the Apple iPhone people say amen. We are praying that one day all of you lost Android souls would walk in the marvelous Apple light. Steve Jobs started in his garage with a few computer parts and a vision. He didn't let his lack of resources stop him from pursuing his purpose, which was revolutionizing the tech industry. He used what he had, his passion, creativity, and determination, to build one of the most successful companies in history. And let's look at my girl, Oprah Winfrey. I love Oprah. Oprah is a living example of what someone can accomplish if you use what you have been given despite the oppositions. She faced numerous challenges and hardships on her journey to becoming a media mogul. Oprah's story is a testimony to the power of resilience and determination, because despite the difficult things that were thrown her way, which included poverty, abuse, prejudice, personal loss, she overcame them and became one of the most powerful and influential women in the world. And what about Tyler Perry? Tyler grew up in poverty and suffered from physical and emotional abuse from his father. When he was trying to fulfill his dreams, he had difficulty finding financial backers for his projects, and he was constantly turned down by theater producers. Tyler even resorted to sleeping in his car and living off canned beans in order to make ends meet. Yet, despite those challenges, he refused to give up and has gone on to become one of the most successful and influential people in the entertainment industry. Y'all, the man owns BET, right? And then there was the story of this unknown, teeny tiny, sandy hair girl from a dirt road in Ringgold, Virginia, who grew up on food stamps, powdered milk, and government cheese. This little girl knew what it felt like to hear her mother cry in the next room because she didn't have enough money to feed her children. But in spite of those struggles and the lack, she decided she would not be defined by those circumstances. That skinny little girl grew up and became the first person in her family circle to go to college. And this same little girl would one day not only become a successful businesswoman, but would also be blessed to help countless others find their voice and experience success in their own lives. These examples that I'm giving you highlight the importance of shifting our mindsets from focusing on what we lack to leveraging what we have. Each of these examples that I gave you share a similar belief of no excuses, just results. In the words of the late, great Ray Charles, we got to make it do what it do. Instead of making excuses, we need to start taking actions with the resources we already have. It's about being resourceful and finding creative solutions to overcome the obstacles that stand in the way of our blessed, abundant life. And so now I want to leave you with a final example of using what you got. Thousands of years ago, there was this young teenage boy that used to tend his family's sheep. Now they tell me he was kind of cute, but I'm sure hanging out with the sheep in a field all day didn't exactly make him palace ready. And he came up against some pretty serious challenges in his own life. He had an encounter with a lion and a bear. How many of you can top that? And he was also overlooked and underestimated by even his own family. But one day, that young man found himself at a crossroad of life, just like you and I. He could either stay in the field with the sheep or stand flat-footed in front of the obstacle, the giant, that was standing between him and the kingdom that he was called to rule. He had no armor, no sword, no army. He had nothing that he needed to overcome this challenge, to defeat this giant. Or at least that's how it seemed. This young man, who many of us know as King David, looked around and realized that he was going to have to use what he had to slay the giant that was standing in his way. And all he had was just a rag and a rock. Dr. Melissa, all I have is just a GED. Dr. Melissa, I am just a mom. Dr. Melissa, all I got is just a few dollars in the bank. I get it. It would be easier if you had more. It would have been easier if the army would have come down into the valley to help David defeat Goliath. It would have been easier, but it wasn't required. You see, David stopped waiting for the cavalry to come save him. He took what he had in his hands and worked with what he had. You see, what looked like a rag and a rock was actually a giant slayer. What looked like a rag and a rock, what looked like nothing, was all he needed to usher him from the pasture to the palace. And so I ask you, what do you have in your hands? What gifts are you discounting and disregarding? What would happen if you stopped looking at what you don't have and start using what you got? I can't answer that question for you, but I have a sneaky suspicion that the thing that you need to slay your giants and ascend to your throne is already in your hands. Thank you guys for coming. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.